At 7 if we could, okay? All of those people out in the cyber world are waiting anxiously, right? So let's begin with the prayer. Let's first lay hold of the silence that envelops us at every moment, but needs to be embraced by us. Loving and gentle God, you who are our very breath, our very life, our very heartbeat, we give you thanks that you call us to go deeper and deeper into your love. We pray that we may truly join the divine dance, that we may accept your accepting us without any reservation, without any condition. We pray that we will dance together with that sense of joy and peace that only you can give. Help us to move together with the same rhythm that brings about harmony as we journey together into this wonderful book, The Divine Dance. We pray this in the name and in the power of Jesus, your Son and our brother forever and ever.
Amen.
Well, welcome. We got some seats up front, y'all, and on the sides. So, the Divine Dance. I'm hoping that you're at least starting to read this book. There's some copies in the back. Irene was saying today that she even heard that maybe Amazon may be out of these books. I'm not sure.
I tried to get it on Amazon and they didn't have any more.
Is that right? Wow. Well, there's only 3 left back there. We had 5, I think. So we had 8, I think. Irene said. So anyway, I was just telling Irene that after really reflecting on the depth of this book, that I would like to break it up into at least 5 sections, 5 months. So January, February, March, April, and May, first Wednesday of every month, we will be reflecting on the Divine Dance. So hope you will keep dancing with us, all right? Okay. I was thrilled to see that Kelly got the picture of the Trinity here, that 15th century icon that is so powerful and so much a favorite of Richard Rohr, okay, and mine too. Sister Sue Tracy gave me a copy of this before she died. Okay, now we have a foreword by William Paul Young, the author of The Shack. That'd be another book it'd be good to go into sometime, huh? Mm-hmm. But he has some very striking quotes here that I like. Relationship has always been the wild card, the court jester. It's an interesting term. Who appears in the midst of our human agenda and our hallucinations of independent self-sufficiency, revealing by any means that the emperor is what? Naked. Who's going to tell the emperor that they're naked? I mean, it's not a very healthy thing to do. But someone needs to point out what is true and stick with it. So this is a very interesting quote. I'd like a married person to read that for us. Who's going to do that? next quote.
A married person?
Yeah, you're just recently married. Go ahead.
Young says that in relationship we submit to mystery and loss of control. Pause. Marriage would be so much easier if there wasn't another person involved. But then it would be meaningless, too. Relationships are entwined, entrenched, elusive, messy, enabling, enrapturing, maddening, exhilarating, frustrating, exposing, and too beautiful for words.
You like that quote? It says it all, doesn't it? Anybody disagree? Why do you think it's all that? It seems like a lot of contradictions in there. I mean, is it overstating the case?
Yes.
You think so?
Well, in my stage of life, a lot of that is decisions, not choices. Some of it isn't, elusiveness, but messiness, maddening, frustrating, those are, to me, those are choices. You can choose to be frustrated in a relationship, whether marriage or friendship.
Right.
I mean, friendship, girlfriend to girlfriend.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But that's just me.
Okay. In short, relationships are a struggle. If they're going to be real, you know, like the Velveteen Rabbit, huh?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that relationships is a beautiful way to start out this book, because I don't know of any other way to describe any phase of religion than with relationships. And it's interesting because I was reflecting as I was driving here this evening that 44 years ago, I guess it was, when I first moved to Grand Rapids and was teaching at the Catholic Information Center on Ionia Street, and before they moved to the cathedral. And I was teaching these 16-week courses on Catholicism, preparing people to join the church if they so chose, you know. And I had as my theme, the overall theme, I just made it up myself, I didn't find it in any book, relationship. So I had everything relating to relationship, all the sacraments, everything, you know. I didn't know of any other way to tie it together. So I feel sort of confirmed in a sense by having this as the opening part of this wonderful book. And then of course the gestures too, because I'm in the clowning too, you know. Fool for Christ, I should say, all right? Bad theology is not a victimless crime. It dehumanizes God and turns the wonder and the messy mystery of intimate relationship into a centerfold to be used and discarded. That's an interesting way to put bad theology. But I think it's justified. I think one of the reasons we have such a diminishment in people participating in religious activities today, and there is a diminishment, is because of bad theology. You know, I think we in many ways have we've gotten stuck, and we're afraid to move on to new thoughts. We're afraid to venture out into the unknown, and there's a lot of people that would put Rohr into that unknown category, unpredictable, unorthodox, whatever you want to put, you know. But he calls it, what is it, orthodoxy? What is it he calls it? What is it?
Orthopraxy?
Yeah, orthopraxis, yeah, but alternative orthodoxy, that's what it is. Alternative orthodoxy. It's orthodox, but it's not your usual orthodoxy, which I love, okay? The rumor in the deep places of our souls is that there is a party going on, and we can scarce trust our invitations. Could there ever be a toast raised to us? By the hand reach out and lead us into the divine dance, whispering in our ears that we were always made for this. And so we wait for the kiss, the breath in and out that awakens our sleeping hearts to life. We were made for this, utterly found within relentless affection. I love that. Relentless affection. Huh? That's a good way to describe God's love for us. You have other terms like the hound of heaven, God seeking after us constantly. But we need terms like this because we have been raised, I think I can speak for all of us, in another kind of religion that has emphasized the negative. That's really been a form of sin management, as Rohr calls it. Sin management. What do you think that term means, sin management?
Following the rules.
Following the rules, okay. The clergy were kind of, that's their modus operandi, make sure everyone follows the rules and crosses the T's and dots the I's, and it's the performance principle. You do it all right and you get your ticket to heaven, right? And if you don't, well, we're there to absolve you, but you need us. You need us. And I think that the church has, not just the Catholic Church, but most churches, have so established the institutional church so that the clergy is needed. They don't want to run out of a job, And so it's so structured that it's less emphasis put on Pentecost and the sending of the Spirit to everyone, and it's more on the structural, institutional dimension that's top down. And we're going to get into that a little more, but we're seeing the results of that. A lot of people that are at the bottom level are saying, well, just deal me out, thank you. Don't need this. And so there are some in the hierarchy that have said, well, it will be a smaller but more faithful church. I think it was Pope Benedict, I think if I was thinking, that it's okay. If they leave, okay, we're going to keep faithful to the church, all right? Well, it's all how do we define the church, okay? So, let's keep going. We have witnessed the shattering of the old wineskins and watched their blood-red wine be absorbed into the ground. This is William Young, I guess. The divine dance, along with thousands of other rising voices, is a violation of empire and a celebration of relationship. When one has seen the profound mysteries lovingly revealed here, one cannot unsee. When one has heard there is no going back, suffering cannot wipe away the heart's smile. He has a way with words, doesn't he? May our courage be emboldened to take the risk of trust to live only inside the grace of one single day, to reach across empire's borders and tear down the walls that mask our faces. So, that's a lot of words there. I want someone here to say what this says to them. Look it over. Take a second because it's so rich. What is it trying to say to you? Okay, Lynette.
I think it's that once you've danced with God, you've had an experience that is so profound that even all those words from the past can't stop that forward momentum and that truth that you know because it's a new truth, but it's really an old truth. It's the truth that unconditional love just makes your heart smile. And that courage to take the risk, to trust, to live only inside the grace of one single day, to reach across empire's borders and tear down the walls that mask our faces. That's like, we were talking this morning about when you have that joy, it's almost a responsibility to share it with people and to help other people to see the truth of God's love, and that it's always a forward momentum. And we can't go back because we know now, deep inside, it's part of our being.
Okay, beautiful, beautiful said. I think what I hear you saying is, here we go with our, I don't know, let's see. There we go. Experience. We've never really been told we can trust our own personal experiences. We've been told that, well, you got to check it out with the catechism, you got to check it out with father or sister or the bishop or whatever, and have it verified. This is not to say that, father, bishop, everything are out of the picture. It's just that unless we have this personal experience to verify our history, our salvation history, our church history, it's just going to be on the superficial level. Experience is when it gets down deep and it changes you, transforms you. All right? And so a lot of people can have PhDs in dogmatic theology and scriptural theology and all of this, and not be transformed, not be changed, not have had an experience of God. Because the experience of God is what can transform you. Not any teaching, not any commandments, not any following of rules, not any rituals, an experience of God. And unless we have that, we're on the surface. And Rohr says that that's another definition of sin, to live superficially, on the surface. And I think a lot of people that are no longer going to established religion, the nuns, N-O-N-E-S, not the N-U-N-S, right? They have experienced a lack of depth, and say they're going to search somewhere else. They're still searching, but they're not necessarily saying that I'm going to be committed to this particular way of finding God. Does that resonate with people? Yeah.
But my experience in life is almost rote.
Okay.
So talk to us about how then you break that training and get down to the depth of experiencing God. Because up to this point, and I'm not saying today, but as a child, a young adult,
Exactly.
you're performing based on a standard set by a parental unit,
Exactly.
a church.
There's only one way that I know of, and that experience of deep prayer. There is no substitute. Deep prayer, silent prayer, contemplative prayer, mystical prayer, prayer of silence, whatever you want to call it, it's calling you to go deep and to struggle. And if we're just going to be satisfied with, commandments and teachings and so forth, as good as they are, they're not enough. They're fingers pointing to the moon, as the Buddhists would call it. Fingers pointing to the finger is not it. The finger is pointing to the moon. What is the moon? What's everything pointing to? The commandments, the scripture, everything. What's all those fingers pointing to? What are they directing you towards? What? Huh?
God, love,
God.
relationship, Trinity.
Yes. I would say it's unity. That all may be one, as you, Father, in me, and I in you. That was the mission statement of Jesus in John 17 that I can see. Nothing else satisfies us rather than total unity. Okay.
I'm just wondering about the possibility of another approach, which is, deep prayer is a more mystical approach, but can we experience God in other people? Can we experience God in nature, in our relationship to nature, or with other people?
Of course.
Okay.
It's not either or, it's both and. Some people say they experience God more from a beautiful sunset than they would in a church service, So it's nature, it's other people, it's pain, it's joy, it's success, it's failure. There's so many ways to experience God. But the mystical dimension that Rohr points out, he says the definition of mysticism, which is based on, of course, the word mystery, that same root word, is that which goes beyond morals, dogma, and ritual. And the key is beyond. It doesn't say these are bad. It just says mysticism goes beyond those. It goes deeper. Okay? Make sense? All right. What's empire? What do you think that, all language is metaphor. Okay? But everything is metaphor. It's always like this, it's like that. And the young people today are always using the word like. It's like this, like that, it drives you nuts. But I think they're onto something. They're trying to, I need to turn off my phone, excuse me. There we go, all right. So, all language is metaphor. So the word itself, God, the word God, is not God. Many languages have other words for God than G-O-D. Deus, in Latin, Rohr says, originally came from Theos, the Greek god. Okay? Was it the Greek god? No. Who was the Greek
God?
Who?
The generic term for God is Theos.
Theos. Yes. But what was the Greek name for God? Their gods.
Zeus.
Zeus. Zeus. Zeus. Zeus. Zeus. Z-U-E-S, right? Yeah, okay. And so, Rohr says that Zeus, the Greek term for God, became Theos, which is translated in English as God. Okay. So, all right. So empire is what? Did I hear someone say that? What's the empire they're talking about?
It could be church structures,
Okay.
or teachings, catechisms, things like that.
But also, all of the social structures that try to keep us trapped in a certain way that is acceptable as opposed to allowing us to be ourselves.
Right. So anything that restricts true freedom, I think, would be empire. It has many faces, many heads, many natures, but we've all experienced empire in some way or another in our lives. Could have been a parent who was very dictatorial, a teacher, a minister. Could have been anything like that, right? Yeah.
Don't we need to put a little word of caution in here? I mean, it seems to me that going beyond revealed truths, shall we say, the Bible, the traditions of the church and so forth, could be considered the very definition of heresy. I mean, is there some caution that...
Why would it be the very definition of heresy?
Well, if you're outside of that which has been revealed, of the truth that is revealed by God,
Okay.
that kind of suggests that you're heretical.
All right? That would be true if we're into dualism and either are thinking, okay? You would be absolutely right. But I love Rohr's principle that includes and what? And, oh my gosh, I'm not slipping it now. It includes and goes beyond. Thank you for the word.
Transcends?
Transcends, yes, good, thank you. Very good. This is Rohr's principle that he's talked a lot about. Includes and transcends. It doesn't exclude, but it goes beyond it. It doesn't exclude what was before, all the doctrines and all the revealed truth, but it tries to expand it and transcend it. Okay? All right. Now, 6 impossible things before breakfast. Who's going to read this for us? First paragraph. Yes, Ann.
In this introduction, Rohr says that we were brought up, Catholics and other religions also, being told that there were mysteries that we shouldn't try to understand, just accept on faith. You would have thought believing 6 impossible things before breakfast was the actual goal of my pre-Vatican II Catholic training. Inner experience was not especially appreciated. Shocking quotation from Jesuit theologian Karl Rahner: Christians are, in their practical life, almost mere monotheists. We must be willing to admit that, should the doctrine of the Trinity have to be dropped as false, the major part of religious literature could well remain virtually unchanged.
This is Karl Rahner, one of the greatest theologians of modern history. And I think what he's saying is that we have not begun to plumb the depths of the Trinity. We're still on the surface. So this is the meaning of this book, to get into a deeper realization, experience of the Trinity. There we go, into outer space. All right. All right. Who's reading now?
Rohr writes that in the popular book The Shack, the Trinity became an inspired subject of conversation and rather pleasant questioning in homes and restaurants. It seems that for 17 centuries, the Trinity has been missing in action, MIA. Rohr. Could this absence help us understand how we might still be in the infancy stage of Christianity? Could it help explain the simple ineffectiveness and lack of transformation we witness in so much of the Christian world? When you are off at the center, the whole edifice is quite shaky and unsure of itself. Rohr suggests that if the Trinity lacks practical and pastoral implications in most of our lives, then either it can't be true or we don't understand it.
All right. It's a good summation. What he's saying here is the center is the Trinity. And we have brushed it off by saying, well, you can't understand the Trinity, just move on and let's memorize the 10 Commandments and so forth. It's always been thought of as the impossible doctrine that no one can understand. 3 persons in one God. Huh? Trinity but one God. Who's going to figure that out? Huh? All the stories of the, was it St. Augustine or whoever was, you know, the little kid trying to take a little spoon and dip out the ocean and put a little hole in the sand. And he said, "What are you doing?" "Well, I'm putting the ocean in this end." "You can't do that." He said, "Well, you can do this more easily than you can understand the Trinity." So, yeah.
I saw a hilarious Facebook post once. It was like a little dialogue.
Gary, would you bring me a little thing of water, please? I'm sorry.
It was a little dialogue where someone says, "Well, can you explain the Trinity?" So he like gives one sentence, and then the observer goes into which heresy he has just committed, and then then on says, "All right, well then it's like this," and then oh no, now you've just committed this heresy, and it goes on, and by the end he's committed 12 different. Now I'm not a formal theologian, so I wasn't familiar with all these, but I'm sure I could have Googled every one of them. And so the guy just I go. He couldn't open his mouth without violating some well-established
Exactly.
Trinitarian heresy. It
So
was
people are
hilarious.
afraid of committing heresy, so they don't dive in. They don't go into the dance. They're sitting around like the old proms. I don't know about you, but remember the proms you'd go to, and all the guys would sit on one side of the hall, and the other girls on the other, and you just sit there, and wonder who's going to ask you to dance or who's going to start. No one wants to start the divine dance with the Trinity. Okay. All right, we're going to end up with this introduction. Circling around is an apt metaphor for the mystery of the Trinity. Perhaps there's no other way to appreciate mystery. Remember, mystery isn't something that you cannot understand. It is something that you can endlessly understand. Now, this is not your ordinary definition of mystery, all right? You don't get mystery, mystery gets you. All right?
That's true.
All theological language is an approximation offered tentatively in holy awe. That's the best human language you can achieve. We can say it's like, it's similar to, but we can never say it is. Because we are in the realm of beyond, of transcendence. Thank you, Don. Of mystery. This calls from us a fundamental humility. Otherwise, religion always worships itself and its formulations and never God. This, of course, gets into the whole distinction between the Epiphatic and the Cataphatic in spiritual life. Epiphatic means without words. It means the negative way of approach to God. And Cataphatic is you're with words, you're familiar, what we all were brought up on. We were brought on the Cataphatic. If you want to pray, you had a prayer book. You had a missal. You had, and even liturgy today, I wish it weren't so, but it is. The prayers are written out. And the celebrant is supposed to pray these prayers, and not those prayers, these prayers, And it's like someone thought these through ahead of time and had the imagination to kind of come up with something which would be a good prayer. Why is it limited to that person who did it umpteen years ago, whatever? What about the present moment when the celebrant is in this spirit of the liturgy? Couldn't they spontaneously pray? I like to do that, It's not always approved, but it's closer to prayer than read prayer. Disagreement? Yes? No? Maybe? Yeah? Okay. All right.
Within certain,
Pardon?
I think it requires, I agree with you 100%, but within certain constraints. I mean, wasn't that the whole idea of why the Mass was created in a certain way, that people were getting a little off track?
Well, yeah, I mean, you need structure, okay? But you also need some kind of creativity within the structure. I mean, it's a both and. It's not either or. But I think it's become pretty rigid in terms of, okay, we don't want any, spontaneous things that could come up and that might be wrong, But I think we've come a long way since the time of the mystics and John of the Cross, Teresa, and so forth, Meister Eckhart, when they were scared to death of doing anything that would be heretical, because they would be brought before the Inquisition and tortured and all the rest. Because you had to have the right formula. The right formula. As if that formula was sacred. And it's cast in stone. No, I mean, the Spirit is not limited by, that particular era of the church. The Spirit is alive today and working within us. I know it's scary because you don't know what's going to come out. I know when I do spontaneous prayer, I don't think it out ahead of time, it just comes. And sometimes it's better than others, all right? But it's from deep within, all right? It's more genuine, I think. But like you say, Jim, you need a little structure, right?
Well, a little structure.
A little structure, all right. Okay. There we go with a spaceship there. Who's reading? All right, Susan?
Over the years, many leaders of our faith have circled around to the best metaphor they could find. Whatever is going on in God is a flow, a radical relatedness, a perfect communion between three, a circle dance of love. And God is not just a dancer, God is the dance itself. A Trappist brother says that the ancient Greek fathers depict the Trinity as a round dance, and that the circular current of Trinitarian love continues night and day. Some would refer to this kind of language as New Age, esoteric, or even heresy.
Okay. Comments? Reflections? What does that say to you?
I love the way it's written, and especially, and God is not just a dancer, God is the dance itself, just says it all.
Doesn't that say it all? Yeah, the more I reflect on this, the more I'm convinced in my own heart that Rohr is really onto something when he keeps saying over and over in his talks that God is more a verb than a noun. What do you think he means by that?
Action, always moving,
Okay.
ending in ing.
A noun is an object, a thing, whereas a verb being activity is more relational by definition.
Right. It goes back to the whole Hebrew concept of respect for God's name. They were not allowed to say God's name. That was because whenever you have the name of someone, you have a certain control and power over them. And if you're out in the airport and someone comes up and says, "Hey, Joachim, how are you?" All of a sudden, I'm interested. How do you know me? You know? They have a certain claim on me because they have my name. You know? And there is something to that. So that the Hebrews refused to say the name of God. They had a description of God. What was it? I don't. Well, this is with the vowels, but they wouldn't even. They don't have vowels in the Hebrew, but Yahweh is what? Who knows what that means?
I am who am.
I am who am. That's a description, huh? What's your name? I am who am. That's not a name. That's a description of your being. All right. And so there's difference here between. We'll get into this later. Substance and accident. These are philosophical terms. But one's substance cannot truly be captured in a name. Just because someone knows your name, they don't know everything about you. You know, the people that say, "I know everything about you." And your first response is, "Oh yeah? You just think you do." No one wants to be told they are completely known because we don't even know ourselves completely. We're a mystery. And that's love and respect mystery, okay? So our substance is such that it cannot truly be named. It can be related to. Accidents are something that are not substantial. They are. They can come and go, and you still have the substance. A person can be a person without arms and legs. Those arms and legs would be accidents in the philosophical term. I know it's not the usual language we use, but I know Bob and I are used to that because of our philosophy background. But you know, it's the terminology. Once again, it's a metaphor. But it gets into the whole essence. The essence, of course, is another philosophical word. You speak of one's essence. It comes from the Latin esse, to be, huh? To be or not to be, huh? Yeah.
It does seem as though you pretty much have to have both the noun and the verb, though. I mean, I can't think in terms of an action without an actor.
That's our limitation. Okay, we want to objectify everything. We want to, because then we have control over it. We can now say, okay, well, I've got this as a table, all right? This is not a chair. This is a chair. We need to distinguish because it clarifies and it makes things simpler for us, okay? We don't like complicated. We like to make it simple, okay? But it's a matter of both and. It's about keeping it all together and not trying to dismiss it. Now, how do we dismiss things that we don't have control over? We give them labels. And that's what a name is. A name is a label. Okay? New Age. You know? If you want to dismiss something, oh, that's just New Age theology. You know? Where's that coming from? California? You know? So you dismiss it, okay? If you want to dismiss anything or anyone, label it. We saw that in the little election we had not long ago, right? Okay. Esoteric. Okay, that's very esoteric. That's very mysterious. That's hidden. That's not substantial. And heresy, of course, that's the one that was such a bugaboo in the time of the Acquisition. It had to be orthodox and not heretical. We want the teaching, we want it to, but we just need to limit ourselves in our tendency to try to label it and name it and objectify it so that we have control over it. Does that make sense? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking back to the previous slide where it was talking about religion worshiping itself.
Yeah.
So the orthodoxy seems to me really what that is. It's where you are worshiping your understanding of the reality.
Right. Your formulation.
That's right.
Against someone else's formulation, right? I've got the truth, you don't. Either are, right? What about I have some truth, you have some truth. Let's talk about it, right? And I think we can do that better than putting you on a torture wheel and trying to get you to convince that you've got my formula, right? All right. Story from Genesis. Talk about Abraham being visited in the desert by 3 men. You remember that story? Genesis 18. You notice the text says, the Lord appeared to Abraham. But then that's the last time you hear of the word Lord. After that, Abraham and Sarah seemed to see the Holy One in the presence of the 3 men there, and their first instinct is one of invitation and hospitality, a space of food and drink. Rohr writes an aside, here we have humanity still feeding God. It will take a long time to turn that around in the human imagination. For us to think that God is feeding us. Rohr writes of his favorite icon by Andrei Rublev in the 15th century, the Trinity, this one right here. It's in the cover of your book. It's a beautiful illustration. This icon is shown in the inside covers of the book. It shows 3 angels eating and drinking in infinite hospitality and utter enjoyment between themselves. Rohr says that if we take this depiction of God in this icon seriously, we would have to say in the beginning was the relationship. Okay, instead of in the beginning was God. Terminology is very important here. Okay, these kind of understandings. Rohr suggests we notice the gaze between the three, the deep respect as they all share from a common bowl, and note the hand of the Spirit pointing toward the open and fourth place at the table. And I've looked at that for a long time, and I'm trying to see this fourth place. Can you help me out here? Yeah, okay.
There's a little rectangle underneath the bowl.
Down here?
Yeah.
Okay.
The suggestion that's made is that that rectangle originally
Was a
had
mirror.
a mirror. So you could see yourself there as the fourth member at the table.
Okay, I heard that, and I read that in this. I think that Rohr might be stretching it a little bit. There's no any kind of proof that there was a mirror. There's a suggestion there might have been a mirror. I think sometimes we need to leave mystery without trying to explain it away. But anyway, is the Holy Spirit inviting, offering, and clearing space? If so, for what? You can decide. Okay, it's up to you. Rohr says that people are transformed more by images and icons and picture windows, stained glass windows, much more so than any kind of doctrine. Images will transform you more than doctrine. Agree or disagree?
Yeah, no, thank you.
In the old days, they couldn't read or write, but they had a lot of stained glass windows and icons and what did they had all those little pieces of stone in there? What do they call them?
Mosaics.
Mosaics. Yeah, excuse me. Yeah.
Still
God, sometimes my memory just goes out, so I need y'all to help me. All right? Yeah, you had something.
Yeah, I'm just curious. In this icon here, are the specific individuals supposed to be readily identifiable?
Do you think they are? I don't. I don't think you can.
I do.
You think anyone is supposed to be men or women? There's nothing identifiable there that I see. They look pretty androgynous to me, you know.
It's different than the one inside the cover of the book. Because
Oh, okay.
inside the cover of the book, the hands are completely different.
Yeah, it's true.
That's
This
what
is
I
not
have.
the same.
Yeah.
It's close, but it's not the same. Yeah.
Well, in this tradition of the icons, they would have a very they were all done differently, but they were all followed the same formula.
Yeah.
You know, when you see one icon, and anyone who's familiar with it would know exactly what they're looking at.
Right.
Just curious if there's something here I'm not getting.
Well, I don't think there has to be a have to. I mean, I see myself at that fourth place.
Do you? Okay.
Because I meditate on this icon a lot.
Do you?
So I've
Okay.
felt drawn into that place. And as I look at it, I can see my place there.
Okay.
So everybody's going to see that differently.
All right. Well, an icon is, the very purpose of it is to draw you in, okay? Draw you in, make you feel part of it, included.
Yeah, and I can't explain it, but I see my place there.
Okay.
It's very
all right.
hard to
You
describe.
don't have to explain it.
Yeah,
No,
that's
no,
right.
no, no.
It can't. That's the mystery.
I was just reading recently where, I think it was Sinclair Lewis that wrote that the worst word in the dictionary is what? What do you think he said was the worst word in the dictionary? He said exclusive.
Oh.
But then there again, you have some nuances. There are places and times for exclusives. You have exclusive meeting of women about to be mothers. Okay, that's pretty exclusive. That's okay. I mean, so it's it's not a either or thing. Okay. All right. This is a section called a whole in God. The word whole, W-H-O-L-E, and H-O-L-E have the same root etymology there. Wholeness is holiness, okay? That's the principle of Rohr. But even this three-fullness does not like to eat alone. Who likes to eat alone? I don't like to eat alone. This invitation to share at the divine table is probably the first biblical hint of what we'd eventually call salvation. Art historians, a possible mirror glued to the front of the table, like Bob was pointing out. I think, once again, I mean, who am I to criticize Rohr, but I think he's stretching it here with this statement that's probably the first biblical hint of what we eventually call salvation. I'm not sure where he's coming from. Do you? I don't know what he's basing that on, okay? We can let it go. We don't have to know. Rohr says, I want you to take this image into yourself as you read. I invite you to recognize that this table is not reserved exclusively for the three, nor is the divine circle dance a closed circle. We're all invited in. All creation is invited in, and this is the liberation God intended from the very beginning. You know, this non-exclusiveness. You know, all these jokes about going into heaven and the Baptists are walking around and what's that noise over there behind that wall? Oh, that's the Catholics. I think they're the only ones here. You know, and then you have it for every religion. You know? But it's the idea that those are the X's. Okay, you couldn't be in heaven if your X was there too. You know? I mean, all these kind of difficult kind of analogies, which I find not helpful.
Excuse me, Father Lally.
Yes.
It would seem like it would be more accurate to say that we were all already in the dance of being, if you will. It's not just that we're invited in, we're already there. Now, some of us might not be very good dancers, but it seems like we're already there. All of creation is already there.
Exactly. I agree totally. You know, it's both and. It's we're there and we're not there also. You know, it's we're here and not yet. I mean, all of these kind of understandings of both and.
I think it has something to do with our awareness. You know, you can be in a room full of people who are joyful and dancing, and you could be just sitting there in your own little world.
Right.
But when you open yourself up to the possibility of dancing, then
Right.
you can see. And it almost has to be. I mean, I think once you've experienced it, you know how to be aware, but you can also choose daily to not be aware or to be aware. You know, it's like a daily choice. It's not you're saved once and for all, and
That's
that's
right.
it. You know, it's like
It's a continuum.
it's a continuous.
Yeah.
But the more you've had the experience, the easier it is, I think, to recognize either when you're being invited or when you're already dancing.
Right. Okay.
But what experience are you talking about? The experience of being? I mean, we're already experiencing being. We're just not so aware. Some of us aren't so aware or good at it.
The awareness of being in relationship and being loved and being loved and being loved, of sharing God with other people, the joy of that, of recognizing and experience God in other people. That's the experience I'm talking about.
But I mean, we all have some of that to some degree.
Well, it's always in degrees, right?
Yeah.
Different degrees.
Isn't it also like the dialogue you have with God? If you let yourself be open to God, it's a form of prayer where you have struggles and you talk to God about it.
Right.
Which it can be difficult to do that, but I don't know, for me, having gone through a lot of physical illnesses, that brought me so that I could dialogue with God, sometimes in anger, but it was a really raw, true emotion, and I found since I've done that in my adult life, it's made me, I feel that God's presence is really there and not just some superficial thing.
That's true.
So it can be.
That of course ties in with what Rohr says, that transformation basically takes place in two ways: deep prayer, deep suffering. Okay. And deep suffering may lead to depth in prayer, or it may lead to bitterness. I mean, there's no guarantee there. But it can be a breakthrough I think that's what you're saying that you've experienced with that, and that's beautiful.
You know, for me, it led to joy
Yeah, all right.
after I got through the other stages.
Right. But you talk about this dialogue, okay? The more I study the mystics, and I've been reading a lot about them, they're much more into lack of words than words. Talking is limited. You know, what's it? Don't talk of words, show me. You remember from that My Fair Lady? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so words just kind of get in the way. And so for the real depth, there really needs to be silence. I mean, if you really want to go deep, if you're not going into silence, you're staying on the surface. And that's the scary part. I don't want to go into silence because, my gosh, you don't know what you're going to find there. You know, when Jesus went in the desert, what does it say? The devils came after him, the demons. He had to confront them and deal with them. That was in the gospel. But then after that, it says angels came to minister to him. So first the devils, first the struggle, and then the resolution. It's a process, okay? All right. Let's do this one more page and let's break out into little groups, okay? Wanted the Trinitarian Revolution, a spiritual paradigm shift. All right. The book, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions by Thomas Kuhn, popularized the word paradigm shift, rare in both science and religion. This asks a major switch from the track we're familiar with, and often the ones who hold on to the old paradigm must die off before a new paradigm can gain acceptance. Why is that? Yeah.
Well, your paradigm is your way of looking at things and the way you understand everything. Mm-hmm. And it's really hard to understand that because you can't see it. A great metaphor for your paradigm, it's like a contact lens or your eyeglasses.
Okay.
So when you're wearing a contact lens, there's one thing in this world you can't see, and that's your contact lens.
That's right.
Yet it influences the way you see everything.
It does. That's a good point. I like that metaphor. Yeah, it's true.
But I heard there's a well-known quote that kind of describes this phenomenon. It says, all great ideas go through three phases. It's dismissed as being stupid, hailed as being brilliant, and then dismissed as being obvious.
Oh, I gotta remember that one.
Dismissed
as being stupid.
Stupid. That's the old paradigm.
Okay.
And the new idea is no one can understand it because they're looking through their old contact lens. Then eventually they see the brilliance of it.
The brilliance, that's the middle step.
And then
right?
you get to the new paradigm where it now becomes the new paradigm, and everyone says, oh yeah, we knew that all along.
Yeah. Why didn't I see that before?
It was so obvious.
Right?
It's so obvious.
It's the breakthrough.
Anybody could have figured that out. It's
Right.
not that big a deal.
Rohr would call this the divine ambush. You know? An ambush by its very nature is something that you weren't expecting. It came unexpectedly when you were unaware. I think one of the most powerful ambushes, the divine ambushes I know of, was the Annunciation. When the angel Gabriel came in uninvited, unannounced, without any warning, to Mary, right? The divine ambush. How many of us have divine ambushes every day, and we're not aware of them? They just kind of, I can't see it. I can't see it. We have these experiences with people, maybe fleeting, just a moment, a smile, a act of kindness that just, 10 seconds and it's over. And unless we're aware people, unless we're really sensitive, we'll miss those. I had a couple of them on the way back from Arkansas last Friday. I was down there for my annual Christmas visit. And I was in St. Louis, Chicago O'Hare there, and went to the United Club. I'd gotten a couple of free passes because I have a United credit card. And I had about 3 hours to spare. It was delayed. And the woman at the United desk was just so friendly, you know. In fact, I was saying, I want to go to this particular gate. And she said, oh, that's way on the other side of the terminal. That's a long way from here, you know. Besides, we have a United Club right next to it, right next door. I think maybe you might want to go there. I said, okay. And she looked at me and she says, would you like some help? I must look older than I think I did. But I was so surprised by that I said, well, I guess so. And the next thing you know, I was being wheeled through the wheelchair. I thought, well, I'll just get used to it. I might have to do this in the future, you know. You got to start sometime. You know.
Try it out.
Try it out, right? Yeah. And I met a very nice young man who was pushing me around, you know, and got a nice conversation. And something else happened that, when I came into one place, came into Grand Rapids at the airport, and trying to get in a car. There was someone picking me up, and this one woman, the guards or police, whatever they are out there, she saw my cross. She says, oh, I love that cross. Wow. And it was like, oh, okay. We had a little breakthrough there, you know, just little 10 seconds worth, you know. But you savor them because these are breakthroughs. These are encounters that break through the anonymity that we so often experience in life. So just little experiences, you know. In themselves, you know, they may not seem like much, but through a lifetime, they add up to an experience of God. All right. Okay, we left off here. Rohr writes, a paradigm shift has little to do with logic or even evidence, and everything to do with cataclysmic insight and breakthrough. What Meister Eckhart calls boiling, bolitio. I love Meister Eckhart. I had this 2 sessions on Meister Eckhart. And he has these great insights in the Trinity. That God, just from the very beginning, from no beginning at all, always was total love. And this total love just boils over into these 3 expressions of love we call the Trinity, okay? And then, after that, I know I'm not doing justice to his genius, but then after that, he calls it the ebolitio, which is the boiling over, which is the boiling over of God into all of creation, okay? But it's just another metaphor, you know. We're always looking at metaphors in any way we can to try to get a handle on it. But Meister Eckhart, if you want to read someone deep, wow, there you go. Rohr takes a lot from Eckhart. And so does Eckhart Tolle, by the way. You know, took his name from him. Rohr says that he thinks the common Christian image of God, despite Jesus, is still largely pagan and untransformed. And in the book, he said after pagan. That's not to say that pagans are bad, you know. But, what do you think he means by that? What does that say to you? That
More
last
of an
sentence.
idol than a true understanding.
I'm sorry?
More of an idol, seeing God more of an idol type instead of a
Okay.
relationship.
You be talking about the cross?
That's Kelly's. Oh, she did that. Good old Kelly. She's a great graphics producer. You talk about an image, okay? And I'm convinced, and Rohr says this over and over, that our image of God is crucial. Everything depends upon your image of God. What is it? It depends on your whole concept of religion. And for a lot of people, they got the image of God in the catechism as an old man on a throne, right? Getting ready to judge the hell out of it, you know?
Yes.
who's gonna fall in love with the guy? You know, something like that, you know? I know I couldn't. Yeah, Tom, yeah.
That group from the '60s that had that song, "I am the God of Hellfire." I mean, that's when I think of the pagan,
Yeah.
that the Old Testament,
And the Puritans.
the strength and
Yeah,
power
right, yeah.
of God was manifest many times.
Right.
So,
Angry.
destroy whole armies and cities and everything.
Well, what are we given in a lot of the liturgical prayers? You know, just think about it, you know. How do so many of them start? Almighty and everlasting God, right? Almightiness. Who can relate to almightiness? I can't. Right? Doesn't do a thing for me. Almightiness. Look at Jesus on the cross and think of almightiness. It's all vulnerability. It's all weakness. It's all availability. It's not almightiness. Why do we have to have God as the Almighty? You know, it's like, is this what Jesus came to show us? Almightiness? Any evidence to that? Yeah.
I think it goes back to when you were doing substance and accident.
Yeah.
And at some point early on, the church took Greek philosophy as its way to try to do theology. And Greek philosophy said the most important thing was being permanent, being unchanging,
Right.
having power, not being able to be to have others have power over you. That these were the highest goods.
That's right, the highest good.
And so, if you think of God as being the highest good, and then you have all these Greek philosophical categories as defining what the highest good is, then God has to be all these things. But if you say, well, what if Greek philosophy is wrong? What if it's not substance that's most important, but a relationship that's most important?
Right.
Then your image of who God is does a paradigm shift.
Paradigm shift, exactly. You know, Rohr talked about one time his theology professor, his last day of class and his last year of theology, and as he walked out the door, turned around to the class and said, "You do know, gentlemen, that Christianity has been much more formed by Plato than by Jesus." And he walked out the door. So there's a lot to that, this whole Platonic thing, this separation of good and evil, substance and accidents, the material and the spiritual, this dualism. We have still captured that and held on to it. That's why we need a paradigm shift. Right? And that's why it's so scary, because, well, what are we going to replace it with? You know, we need something substantial, right?
So one of the greatest paradigm shifts was the incarnation
Yes.
as a baby. You
Yes.
know, today I work with children 3 to 6 years old, and we had a time together. We don't call it a class; it's a session. And we did the birth of Jesus and the adoration of the shepherds. And being with those kids is just so joyful. But what was lifted up was, first of all, the angels say, "Be not afraid."
Right.
And I think that's where Almighty God, yes, we can be afraid, but Jesus comes as a baby. They're told, "Be not afraid." Then what do they see? A baby.
A baby.
You know, and
Who's going to be afraid of a baby, right?
And the angels came to the lowliest of
That's right.
creatures, the shepherds. First, they were the first ones to receive the good news. Not kings, not King Herod, not, you know, the elders of the Jewish faith. It was the shepherds, the ones who were,
Right.
so,
The shepherds who were unclean.
unclean, smelly.
They were considered unclean publicly. They were publicly unclean people. They could not enter the temple. Shepherds could not go into the temple. So the temple goes out to the shepherds. You know? It's such a beautiful thing, you know? It's powerful. All right.
So I
So,
think
okay.
part of it is the whole noun-verb thing.
Yeah.
So it's like when Moses and Israel got the golden calf, they needed to see something. They couldn't handle the the invisible, so they needed
Right.
something, a gold calf. Well, when you're dealing with nouns, you need to have that concrete physical, so we
Right.
need a crucifix, we need,
Right.
substance, and we're talking about verbs is like, what is that, it's like.
How am I gonna get hold of a verb?
And relationship, what's that? That's messy.
That's right, that's messy, that's ephemeral,
It's like, how do you?
you can't control it.
Yeah.
Who likes that? I mean,
What's the
come on, we want,
What's a verb look like?
we
What's
want order, huh? We want orthodoxy and order, and they're all wonderful. But we need more than that, okay? So, with that, I'd like to break up into small groups and just kind of mention what has taken place so far in this particular first part of the book that sort of leapt off the page at you, that really grabbed you and got you, as it said, you don't get the mystery gets you. So, I'll let you kind of divide up as you see fit. I'd like to suggest 5 or 6 people and no more than that. So, y'all are adults, you can just divide yourself as you like. Okay.
It'll be back. Did you? I just picked it up yesterday. More than else to get it around you.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
I hear you coughing over there.
I know. I like those.
All right, Ann, will you welcome?
I'll welcome you. I don't know. Ruth probably will too.
I don't think I've met Jim Howard.
She's a very welcoming soul.
We did.
But you know what, that was so true. I have my own book in the Bible.
Well, I'm one of Jesus' top guys.
Yeah, but I'm Jesus' bride and Jesus' grandma.
Well, that's pretty good. You're right up there. I'll give you that. Your family.
Don? Nice to meet you, Don.
Hi, Don. Jim.
Ruth.
He's Bob. Nobody know Bob? Okay.
No, but we do now. And there's Bob's here. 2 Bobs. Yeah, 2 Bobs. That's right, 2 Bobs.
Solid object people like a table get involved in Roxanne. Imagery, was much more, less profound. The thought that came to mind was the scene from the movie Ricky Bobby. Have you seen that movie? No, I haven't.
I've read this Rohr before. Yeah, I must say, I struggle with him, I mean, maybe every...
come to the classes.
Well, that's it,
He's hard to...
You can get a little... I mean, I like a lot of the things he says, but, I like all these guys.
Ron Rolheiser's a lot easier. I like him the best.
Who?
Because Ron Rolheiser. Yeah, you like Ron Rolheiser? Yeah. I like
You
him.
get a little esoteric. I guess that's what we're talking about, isn't it?
Well, this is what right somewhere is kind of the subject.
He had this imagery that was working for him, and his friend had a different imagery that was working for them, and they had very different ideas of looking at the same thing. It's hilarious.
So science is telling us that we live in a universe in which things are not predictable. Things are, at the most minute level, things are unpredictable. So in that sense, everything, even the atoms of the table, are participating. We're in relationship. Everything's a relationship. Even relationship, interactive, right. And based on that, what you think, we don't really have a choice whether we're in the rumor But we can choose how we want to dance. We can dance with the flow, or we can dance against the flow. You're bumping into everybody on the way out the door.
But we're still interacting. I mean, as I said, you know, some of us might not be very good dancers, but we're still,
Yes.
Just to highlight those parts of the page that extends
How can that be?
you want to highlight something that's important.
I'm not sure of that. Well, so to me, what section does that relate
To me, it's really talking. But it's scary, but it's exciting, and it's like, is it possible? Is it true or not? It's to me that.
Right.
Kind
Rather than looking at it from both sides.
exclusive kind
Yes,
of approach.
exactly, exclusive.
Inconclusive is what we should go to.
Yes.
You know, when somebody says something off, it's hard to take about
Getting married on
that.
I've been taken out by
That's like really
I could have said it better myself.
I'm working on it. But I know, it's just like, just what you're but how do I understand mutation, accept
much the same people think about it, but it's relational. Have it done. Think about God.
I need identity on my feet.
show up, we're happy. Well, it's interesting because we could spend a whole hour talking about the period, and I don't know if you have experienced this period way because of me, because of all that. And yet, as I never had children, but as a parent, I see parents upset when their children go away. We have to consider.
I think it's something that for most, you have to do. I mean, you don't have to. I mean, I have a lot of friends that didn't, but I did. And I did it in a way, probably a bad way. I grew.
Well, as long as you grew.
Well, came back.
Yeah, that gets back to that thing about your paradigm is as long as you are within your world, you can't see it, nor can you understand it. Like I said, as long as you're within your own little world, you can't see it. It's the contact lens idea. You cannot see a contact lens when it's in your eye. What is the only way you can actually see your contact lens? To take it out. And so by leaving or having a period outside, you actually can see what you could not see.
That'll probably be true people who have a near-death experience too, where they felt some other dimension because they were dying.
Same thing happens in divorce. We come people who they wish they had been when they were married.
Yeah, and part of it.
Same idea.
Part of it for me was the 70s.
If you remember the 70s, you weren't there.
Well, that's when I was growing up. That's when I was, 19. So,
It was the 60s for me. Whatever it was.
And this is why, we like to like traveling. It's the same way. You just stay in your own little world. You don't explore either intellectually outside of what you know, or meet people outside of your own circle of friends, people who are really isolated.
That's part of what I see is wrong with the white culture. We're so isolated.
They cannot get
outside of their paradigm.
Even when we traveled to Turkey and we were in some of the churches, where they had the icons, Orthodox, the icons of there's the one it's Christ as King of the universe. It's a major icon of the Orthodox Church, which I never had heard of before.
Have you ever explored the Hindu tradition? Now, they have multiple icons. And then sometimes
It's a great story. Oh my God. It was like, no, it's not that big, but it's paperback.
I know in Buddhism there's the
Great story.
a dance kind of concept.
Somebody
I like
sent
that.
it to me.
I like Buddhism a lot. And Baha'i too.
Years ago, I read it twice, and every time
I once had a tragedy at school where a young man was killed in an automobile accident, and his parents were Baha'i. And I was assigned to go to the hospital and be with them.
And that was not the father's book.
And I've never seen such calmness on the death of his son.
I mean, if
And
God's
I
gonna
said,
use an
Linda,
image
you
for
just
me,
have to help me
he knew.
understand.
That's the
She said,
best
this is
way.
how we live. We live as though we will die in heaven. And it's so ingrained in their religious upbringing that it's almost like a sin to be upset. She didn't use that word, but it was not proper to be upset. It was
I wasn't as
my word,
The
sin.
afterlife,
The afterlife was so believable that they were almost elated that Michael was because he was in a much and that just freaks most of his motives. I like what he has to do, the divine ambushes every day. I really like that. Because when you think of divine ambush every day,
There's opportunity every day.
every day,
A lot of times we're just not tuned into it.
absolutely, but I will be more tuned into it, but that's, I love that verbiage, divine ambush.
Yeah, because I was in
circled the
Minneapolis
same
and it was sent to me as a
sentence
gift there.
that I
So
like,
that was
which
2008, so 8 years ago.
religion worships itself and its formulations. All theological language is an approximation.
And plus,
I think it makes people feel safe.
as many people who love that book.
So, yeah, that's the.
There's also.
And then you can explain the universe.
It's not theologically sound.
Your understanding becomes your.
Why it is, and I thought.
I like something called thinking for God. We you know, as soon as you also brought up label, you label it and control it.
Yeah, I like that.
It's our, by defining the Trinity or defining religion and putting a name on it, label on it, having your orthodoxy, that's what's allowed, that's not allowed. You then are really thinking for God, and you basically
would get my
would then eliminate God.
You went to church, you followed the rules, you went to heaven. It was a transaction, it was a business transaction. I go to communion, I go to confession, I go to mass on Sunday, I go to heaven. It's a good contract.
That contract isn't effective. It doesn't provide unison.
No. I think Jesus came to raise us up from that kind of thinking, because my reading of the New Testament is that he's often criticized the Pharisees, who were the best at the Jewish.
The Greeks didn't write writing until like 300 years before Jesus. We also got to remember that the writers of the gospel, none of them have used Jesus' language.
This has got to be a prehistoric superstition. This invoking the name of Jesus as somehow having mystical powers.
Is it
Well-
prehistoric would be what? Pre-Jesus, right? Before Christ.
Before written records.
Like we pray in the name.
Yeah, that's what I
right.
just said. In
Yeah.
the name of the Father, in the name of the Son.
That's really
They're
our
all male, by the way.
metaphorical way of saying we're identified. That's part of our identity.
Right, but that's your identity. See, I'm female, so that's not my identity.
Well, then you can say in the name of the mother.
We don't, but, yeah,
You can say that.
in the name of the mother,
The mother, right?
Is a woman.
That's right.
Yeah, like, great. That had my attention instantly.
Julian of Norwich, same thing.
Yeah.
God is a woman.
She calls Jesus the mother.
Yeah. You can't read scripture within a length of time and not find Jesus as a monster. You just can't.
Interesting.
Huh? No, you can't not find it.
I hate to break this up, but we got a few more pages to cover if you don't mind. I like to see all this excitement and all this energy. It's really inspirational. Okay. If you get a chance, I would suggest you try to use the markers to mark those things that really leap off the page. You ought to see the books I read. I've got, oh my gosh. I mark up everything. Underline it, mark it. I can never sell my books. They're all marked up. Okay. So, now we go to the static and imperial image of God. A supreme monarch who is mostly living in splendid isolation from what he created, right? We're really so stuck up on language and gender in reference to God. I mean, it's like, how did we get stuck in that? I think it goes back, of course, to the old times of patriarchy, and it still is. But there's no sex in God. There's no gender in God. It's just father, mother is just as much as mother or father. Julian of Norwich referred to God as mother and Jesus as mother. Okay, so I know that a lot of people in authority get all bent out of shape when we start changing the pronouns, but I don't know any way of how to do it that's just. I mean, and honest, and truthful. So, okay. We always become what we behold. The presence that we practice matters. What kind of presence do you have to someone else? That's why we desperately need a worldwide paradigm shift in Christian consciousness regarding how we relate to God. A paradigm shift. A real earthquake, Instead of our images of God as abstruse conundrum, eternal threatener, omnipotent monarch, could God be imaged as the ultimate participant in everything, both the good and the painful? Instead of God watching life happen from afar and judging it, how about God being inherent in life itself? How about God being the life force of everything? God not as an object, a noun, but as the life energy between each and every object. That is love or spirit. This allows God to be all-inclusive. Okay? The Trinitarian Revolution reveals God is always involved instead of the in and out deity that leaves most of humanity orphaned much of the time. This in and out business, it doesn't do it. It's inherent. It's in our very essence. It's just so needed to have that paradigm shift. The idea of the participant. If you really want to read some really good theological insights, read Ilia Delio.
It's the best.
Oh, Ilia Delio, Franciscan nun. She is one of the sharpest people I've ever heard. You can get a lot of her talks on YouTube.
How do you spell that?
Okay.
I-L-E-O.
It's I-L-I-A.
Oh.
I think it is.
Yes.
Ilia Delio. I'm not sure if it's one or two L's for Delio.
This person's still alive.
Oh yeah, she's a Franciscan nun. She's probably in her early 50s. really short, thin, petite.
She's a hoot.
She is a hoot. She is
just wonderful.
she's got I don't know how many doctorate degrees. She is so smart.
Her book on prayer is second to none.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. I just got a book that I want to read. It's about centering prayer by what's the Episcopal priest's name? It's on the tip of my tongue.
Eric Law?
No, a woman.
Oh, okay.
Oh gosh, I can't think of it. Anyway, Rohr has her on a lot of his programs. All right, so moving right along here. There you go. Who's going to read this now?
I'll read it.
All right.
Understanding the hopeful and positive adoption and inheritance theologies of Paul and the Eastern Fathers, rather than the punitive images of God that have dominated the Western Church. Thus, everything is holy for those who have learned how to see. This triune God allows you, impels you to live easily with God everywhere and all the time. In the budding of a plant, the smile of a gardener, the excitement of a teenage boy over his new girlfriend, the tireless determination of a research scientist, the pride of a mechanic over his hidden work under the hood, the love nuzzling of tenderness with which eagles feed their chicks, and downward flow of every mountain stream. Such a big definition of God's being one with life must include suffering and death in its great embrace.
Okay. You know, this is the breakthrough that we're seeing in a lot of the theological writing today is God is also changing. You know, God changes as we change. God changes with us. God suffers. I mean, it's this vulnerable God, not this almighty separate God. And a lot of people just can't deal with that. They want God out there, you know, not God in here with us. And but that creates this image of God as someone who's judging you, right? And that's one of my favorite themes in all of my classes is how God is not judging us. God cannot judge us because God is love. Love doesn't judge. The very definition of judging is separating. That's what it means. If I judge you, I'm separating myself from you. So God does not judge us. God loves us into growing change and development, but doesn't threaten us into fear. The most repeated phrase in the Bible is "Do not be afraid." The only emotion I know that Jesus ever said "don't have," you know. And so, where do we get into this image of God as someone who's going to, you know, send you to hell to burn for all eternity? You know, could you ever fall in love with a God like that? I couldn't. You could be afraid of him, or her, or whatever, you know. But we are on this earth to fall in love with God as God has fallen in love with us. That's why we're here. To learn how to love and receive love. And to purge out all those images and those feelings associated with God that are untrue. You know, it's just not my opinion. I mean, is God to be feared or not? That's a basic question. And you know, a lot of the times in the Bible you say, the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom, right? That's one of the Proverbs. That's bad translation. It's not fear, it's respect for God is the beginning. You first respect God. Respect comes from the Latin re and spectare, which means to take another look. Okay, spectare is to look, re is to look back. So respecting is to take another look at someone you didn't really see in the first place. So it's very different than this fear of God. You can't, and the only way you really grasp this is in silence. When your mind, your fearful emotions are out out of control. I mean, you're just letting go of those. All right. Courtroom scenes and penal systems do not inspire and change the world. They're totally inadequate to communicate the divine banquet and invitation. In fact, they make it largely impossible to imagine. It is not about being obviously religious. We have tried that for centuries with small results. It's about being quietly joyous and cooperative with the divine generosity that connects everything and everything else. Scriptural backup. There's only Christ. He is everything and he is in everything. Colossians 3:11. This is not pantheism. This has been condemned. Pantheism means everything is God. Okay? It's panentheism. Everything is in God. There's a difference. You know, it's a very philosophical terminology there, but it's very important. Reading. Who's reading? Oh, Jim, okay.
Rohr says that this unearthing of the Trinity can't come too soon, because beneath all the evils of hatred and of others, because of race, gender, sexual orientation, political corruption, ecological devastation, etc., is our profound and painful sense of disconnection. This includes our disconnection from ourselves, our bodies, from each other, and from our world. Quote, the religious, spirituality, and politics of worthiness games, belonging barriers,
yeah.
and achievement rewards will never be the cure. These are in fact part of the disease. But God's joyous unveiling as Trinity can melt even the most hardened constrictions, illuminating the way toward a fourfold reunion of spirit, self, society, and sense of peace.
Sense of space. Okay.
Oh, space.
This to me speaks of what Rohr is doing now a lot of, called the emerging church. Anybody heard of that term? You know, he has this school in Albuquerque where they're trying to form the emerging church. And this is not a sense of denomination when you say church. Denomination means separation. Okay? We have in this room people of different faith backgrounds. Okay? Glory be to God. That's wonderful. They're different, like looking at a diamond from different dimensions and different facets by putting it in the light in a different way. We all have something to offer. And so the emerging church is everyone seeking truth and beauty and love together without thinking, well, I've got it and you don't, you know. And we give, you know, dirty looks to those who are not Catholic or whatever it is, you know. I hate that term. Oh, are you a non-Catholic? Well, I'm a non-Methodist and I'm a non-Episcopalian and all that, but that's a negative, all right? Who likes to be called nun something, you know? Except maybe the nuns say like that, you know. But this idea we give dirty looks to people who are not, quote, quote, one of us. I like that thing I heard over the holidays and said, one time I thought about giving a dirty look to someone, but then I decided they already had one. So it's like, how do we judge and separate? We have so many ways of doing it. Huh? Some of us are past experts, PhDs, sizing up, analyzing, putting people in boxes and categories and labels, right? That's the number one enemy of peace, to label, to judge. If you want peace at all, discipline yourself not to judge, not to label. Not yourself or other people. You know, it sounds too simple, but it's true. dusting off. I don't know where Kelly found the little dust broom, but isn't that cute? It's moving, yes. It was. It stopped moving. What is it going on? I guess it's been dusted off, right? After reading the book God for Us, The Trinity in Christian Life by Catherine Maury Lacuna, Rohr was convinced. He did this on a retreat one time. He started the retreat saying he wasn't going to read anything. And he found this book and he got so intrigued in it, he went against his own decision. He was convinced that the doctrine of the Trinity is no longer an abstract idea, a doctrine or a shelved belief, but an inner experience of God. An objective way of describing his own deep inner experience of transcendence in what he calls flow. I love the word flow. It's a favorite term of Meister Eckhart. This flowing of God. It's just so beautiful. At this point, once we have gone from dogma to experience, and it's not something that we merely believe, but in a very real sense, something that we know. It's like Rohr says, I no longer believe in God. And he shocks everybody, you know. I know God. The difference. Believing and knowing. It's an experience. It's a relationship. Ooh. Math problems. God is one of the most contested ideas we have. What's going on inside of God in the dance of creation. Trinity, but one. Not exactly one, and yet perfectly one. Not exactly three, but yet 3 2. But, you know, try to get that in your mind, right? Note this for now. The principle of one is lonely. The principle of 2 is oppositional and moves you toward preference. The principle of 3 is inherently moving, dynamic, and generative. I never heard of it that way, but I like that. It makes sense to me. Does it make sense to you? Ever's in the past. We've all heard them. Shamrock, right? 3 little petals with 1 leaf. 3 faces on 1 person. Water, ice, and steam. We all have all these metaphors we try to, you know, use for the Trinity. The Cappadocian fathers of the Eastern Church said, don't start with the 1 and try to make it into 3, but start with the 3 and see that this is the deepest nature of the 1. What matters is the flow itself and undercuts all dualistic thinking. What's dualistic thinking?
Either or.
Either or. Either or. Either you're with me or you're against me, right?
Believe or you don't believe.
What's that?
Believe or you don't believe.
That's right. All right. We're just about ready to wrap up here. Who's going to read this here?
God is not a being among other beings, but rather being itself, being and acting principles. God is unhindered dialogue, totally positive and inclusive flow in one direction, and a water wheel of outpouring love that never stops, boiling and boiling over of Eckhart. Bonaventure. God is a fountain fullness of love. One cannot talk of wrath of God, unforgiveness of God, or any kind of holding back. Nothing human can stop the flow of divine love. We cannot undo the eternal pattern, even by our worst sin. God is always winning, and God's love will win. Love does not lose, nor does God lose. You can't stop the relentless outpouring force that is the divine dance. Any retributive justice projected onto God is seen through the lens of outpouring Trinity as undone by God's mercy and is reframed rightly as restorative justice, as taught by all the major prophets and many of the minor ones too.
Okay, so that beautiful distinction between retributive and restorative judgment. We are mainly focused on what? Retributive. Tit for tat. You do this, you get either reward or punished, okay? It's just, we just really like that kind of thinking. It's the winning and losing. We love to compete. Men particularly are really into it. Rohr says that for some reason the male species get a contest going, win or lose, and you've got them. They just love that winning and losing. Who's on top, you know? It's so true in so many ways. We see it especially in our sports world, right? Okay, don't get me going on that. Okay. Okay. Oh, well, look at my guys, look at that. Kelly has found some new toys. All right. Aristotle, the renowned Greek philosopher, spoke of substance and relationship. What defined substance was that it was independent of all else. So a tree is a substance, whereas father and son are relationship words. Aristotle ranked substance higher than relationship. We wanted God to be substantial. Yet Jesus consistently ranked relationship over substance. Just read the whole Gospel of John. You know, I am in the Father, and the Father is in me. It's just all relational. It's very different from the synoptics, the Matthew, Mark, and Luke. John is the mystical evangelist. I love John. We exist only in relationships, but some want to be independent, self-made persons. You ever met a self-made person? It's an oxymoron. There is no such animal. In their mind there might be, but no one's self-made. Did you cause yourself to be born? I don't think so. How do we get into that sense of independence? That really is the essence of what Merton calls the false self. That part of yourself that wants to be independent and self-sufficient and not need anybody. That's this false self. Okay? There are always people who can stay in relationship at all cost. A holy person. People who are psychopathic or sociopathic are always those who cannot maintain relationships. They run from them. All right, every case of non-physiologically based mental illness stems from a person who has been separated, cut off, living alone, forgetting how to relate. This person does not know intimacy and is starved for communion. He said, this psychiatrist said that any non-physiological illness, mental illness, is caused by lack of relationship. Loneliness, being cut off. You know? I just saw a powerful movie last night with Father Paul Milanowski. You may have seen it, Fences. Oh my gosh, that'll knock your socks off. Denzel Washington, the family relationships and dynamic relationships and how we are the results of relationship with our parents and all this. It really is powerful. I think I hope it gets an Academy Award. It's really a play. It's much more play than it is a movie, but it's a play in a movie format. That's probably why God created the sexual drive so strong in most of us. It's an instinct that demands relationship in its healthy manifestation, because when you separate yourself from others, you become sick, toxic, and I'm going to say even evil. Jesus became naked vulnerability in the incarnation. Naked vulnerability means I'm going to let you influence me. Influence comes from the flow, F-L-U-E. I'm going to let you flow into me. I'm going to allow you to change me. When you don't give other people any power in your life, when you block them, I think you're spiritually dead and not far from evil. In this condition, compassion and empathy are impossible. We're living in a world where a lot of people are not very compassionate. There are some that are, but they're rare, and maybe your experience is different. But a lot of people, it's all about me. I'm going to get the best seat in the house. I'm going to get the best house on the block. I'm going to get the best car. Me, me, me. And they're lonely and they're sad as a whole, except if they have loving relationships that call them out of their loneliness. All right? Who's going to read here this last part? Oh, okay.
We really were made for love, and outside of it, we die very quickly. And our spiritual lineage tells us that love is personal. God is love. Rohr writes, I've observed that the vast majority of Christians are afraid of God. In my now broad and worldwide experience, I do not find most Christians to be naturally more loving than those of other faiths. We just think we are. Fire insurance.
Right.
Holy Spirit, pictured as a dove or as the wind, can't be captured so easily. So all we have is metaphor. The Spirit blows where it will. God has many that the churches do not have, and the churches have many that God does not have.
I love that quotation. God has many that the church does not have, and the church has many that God does not have. What does that say?
A lot.
It says they're not one and the same. You know? A church is one of the fingers pointing to God. It's not the finger, it's not all there is, but it's one of the means, okay? And let's don't confuse that with the God, okay? There's spirituality and there's religion. A lot of people say, well, I'm spiritual but not religious. I'm spiritual but I don't come to church, okay? And some people say, oh, I'll pray for you, you know. As if going to church is the same as, you know, being in union with God. A lot of people go to church and can't wait to get out to looking at their watch. I mean, as a preacher, as a priest, I'm just blown away by looking out and people kind of, you know, looking, oh. They don't want you to see that they're looking. I mean, they can't wait to get out of there. Is that a transformative experience? Oh, well, why did you go? Well, I had to go to church, you know. If I don't, it's a mortal sin. And if I die as I go out of church, I'm going to hell. You think I'm going to miss church? No way. But don't talk so long next time, Father.
Just for the record, I do listen with my eyes shut.
Oh, wow. What a dreamer.
Yeah, you're better than that.
I'm not judging. But, you know, I think I mentioned before, religion, I had all those years of Latin when I could have been learning something else. Okay. Re and ligio, religion. Religio is to bind together, back. So any religion is to carry back to its source. It's to bind together. It's to hold together. And so any real religion is going to have everything fit. No little loose ends here, and I can't explain that. Good religion will put it all together. Spirituality is this intimate, a metaphor for our intimate relationship with God, such as faith is the same thing. And hopefully those who are going to any religious service will have previously gotten into deep religious experience, spirituality, prayer. Otherwise, it's not going to work. It's not just going to be oh, I went to church, I'm going to heaven. I don't know about you, you know. You see the need for both? And we've only emphasized, to a great extent, performance. Showing up. Seat warming. Be there. We haven't called forth from people their deepest selves, which is their spiritual selves, okay? Okay, so I think I'm going to sign off now and just look at this last page here. Next class, February 1st, the first Wednesday of February. We're going to start with metaphors be with you.
With your spirit.
Pardon?
And with your spirit.
Yeah, can you imagine? The metaphors be with you. I think people run out of church. Think from another planet. You're right. So you can see how we're going to divide up the book here. It's going to be a challenge because this is not easy reading. Have you discovered that?
All of Rohr.
Oh, I mean it's challenging. So it's hard. It's a lot of work for me to get the kernel of each of these pages so that we separate that which is more important than others, okay? So I hope that you stick with us, that you're hungry for more, that you want to get deeper and deeper into this divine dance, okay? So I appreciate you coming. I enjoyed being with you, and we will hopefully see you February 1st, all right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, all right. Okay, let's just say a little prayer. Loving, gentle God, we pray that